The Big Ten and the SEC, according to Brett McMurphy in Action Sports, don't want Florida State. Thanks, but no thanks. Florida State wants out of the ACC so bad that maybe they forgot that they needed somewhere to go. Like, do you know what Florida State is turning into? They're turning into the 10-year-old that runs away from home. You get the stick, you get the little the blanket, you put one toy inside, you tie it up, and you're like, I'm never coming back. And you go walking down the road before you recognize, kind of hungry.
Yeah.
You know what?
For dinner?
You know what? I had it pretty good. A little tired. I'd like to watch some TV. You know what? I'm going to go back home. Because you don't have anywhere to go. Here's the reporting done by Brett McMurphy of Action Network. Florida State will likely not have a spot in the Big Ten or SEC if it's successful in leaving the ACC and the ACC stays intact, sources told Action Network. Also, the reporting says that if Florida State were able to exit the ACC, their number one and number two choices would be the Big Ten and the SEC. So Florida State wants them. They don't want Florida State. And it gets even juicier. A Big Ten source tells Action Sports, look what they did, getting the Attorney General involved, accusing former ACC Commissioner John Swofford of rigging the television rights to help his son, filing a suit to expose ESPN's TV deals, something the other three power leagues are against, by the way. They're not a good partner. There's no congeniality. No one wants that. Another Big Ten source. There are too many negatives. They've proven to be a disruptive partner, even if you got them in a similar discounted rate as the Oregon and Washington deal. Do you trust them as a partner? This is too rich. From an ACC perspective, and we're here in ACC country in the Triangle, right? State, Carolina, Duke, these are some of the pillars of the Atlantic Coast Conference. From an ACC perspective, I am exhausted with Florida State. I am exhausted to a lesser extent with Clemson trying to kind of, hey, we're going to let Florida State knock down the door, but we want to be next in line once they do it. And now to have the Big Ten and the SEC simply look over and go, you've kind of made the life of your conference a living heck for the last however many years, and we don't need you. We don't need that. Do you know how much value Florida State brings to the SEC? Not enough to warrant slicing the pie another way for another member. They already have Florida. Right? They have that state. They know what's going on. The ACC, and this is the part Florida State doesn't want to hear, the ACC is the best spot for Florida State, and everybody else can see it. And Florida State's still acting that way. They're still throwing temper tantrums. They're still whining. They're still crying. They're still trying to be the squeaky wheel. And other conferences are going, wait a second, they're in the spot that's best for them, and they're whining and complaining. Why would we think it's going to be any better when they get here?
And you're not going to add anything to us, really.
It is unreal. The Big Ten, by the way, has this kind of like a swanky unwritten rule that you have to be an AAU research university to join the Big Ten, which is it's like an academic prestige honor club that you have to apply for and jump through certain hoops to get that kind of certification. Florida State doesn't have it.
Go figure.
If you're the Big Ten, that's an easy reason to go, oh, we don't want the whiny complaining child. Why not? All right, we probably shouldn't tell them it's because they're whining. It's because you're not in the AAU research club. Now stay out.
How do I get one of those?
It's too hard for you.
Yeah, basically. Nah, you don't want to know.
It's impossible.
Form you have to fill out.
Yeah. Paperwork. You're better off just staying in the ACC.
Yeah, just stay where you are, man. You're good.
It's so juicy that you can complain and whine, and we want out, and we're going to sue, and we're going to sue, and we're going to sue. We're going to have board of trustees meetings where every quote that comes out of the board of trustees meeting is anti-ACC, even though the Atlantic Coast Conference is supporting you in a lot of ways and has entertained things like performance-based pay and has entertained things to make you more happy. Even with all of that, you're still ungrateful. And others are noticing, right? Florida State is the child that acts up in the grocery store. You know what I mean? When your parents are just like, I don't want everyone to see you acting this way.
You already have 3 boxes of cereal at home. You don't need this one.
Every kid, I've got a 3-year-old at home. Every kid throws tantrums, right? Every kid's going to have their meltdowns.
Oh.
Parents just would really ask you to not do it in public.
That's it.
Florida State can't help themselves. They're trying to do it in public. They're trying to throw their tantrums in public. They are whining and crying and slamming their fists and stomping on the floor of the cereal aisle. And the SEC and the Big Ten are looking going, yeah, maybe the Big 12, man. We got nothing for you. And that leads me to the news of yesterday, which was the Big 12 is now circling Florida State and Clemson. Do you know why? Because there's nowhere else to go.
Yeah. We have off-brand cereal for you. That's Big 12.
That's what it is.
You want your stuff in the bag?
Put the Fruit Loops back. You can get the Fruity-O's. Like,
yeah, exactly.
That's what's going on here. And put the Big 10 back. You can get the Big 12.
Honey toasted O's. That's what you're getting.
It's the Big 12 is trying to be opportunistic. I actually give the Big 12 credit now. It makes more sense. Because they're thinking, hey, if the Big Ten and the SEC don't want them and they've burnt enough bridges in the ACC that they're just get out by all accounts, by any means necessary, if they get out, they might need a place to land. We might as well be sitting there with arms wide open, like Creed. The other thing I thought that was interesting in this article, and this relates more to the ACC, is all of this we don't want them goes away if the ACC implodes, right? If there is some kind of, the way it says here, if the ACC, this comes from one of the sources in the Action Network article, Brett McMurphy, the reporter. If the ACC doesn't implode, Florida State could be in a dangerous spot. I don't know if they have a home unless there's a doomsday scenario and the ACC implodes. FSU is in a bad spot.
I don't see the doomsday scenario.
The only thing that makes me concerned is if you tell Florida State the only way the Big Ten or the SEC are interested is if the ACC implodes, guess what becomes Florida State's mission number 1?
Destroy the ACC.
From the inside, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're gonna
infiltrate.
They're going to try to get other teams involved. I believe the doomsday scenario is 8 teams. I think they need 8 to decide they want out in order to trigger kind of the end of times clause for the ACC. If you start saying the only way the SEC or the Big Ten want Florida State is if there's that scenario, they're going to channel all their attention towards recruiting.
But those 8 or whatever schools also need to be secure knowing that they have a landing spot too. Like, hey, we're not just going to blow this thing up just for the sake of doing it if we don't have a place to land.
And that's where Florida State has to get mighty persuasive.
Exactly.
The Big 12 is better for you. We're going to the SEC, but the Big 12 is better for you than the ACC is kind of what they have to do. Because the Big 12 will be open for especially the top half of the ACC. Mm-hmm. They're not going to turn down top 2/3 of the ACC.
By the way, I have some Florida State sound here for you.
Let's hear it. Yeah, it's on brand.
Yeah.
It's on brand. And by the way, I'm not talking about the athletes, right? We're going to be at ACC kickoff next week.
This is not an indictment of them or the coaches.
They're trying to do their best to win. This is happening in boardrooms rather than locker rooms.